Learn how to create, sustain, and scale up your print-on-demand business with the latest tips, guides, and strategies to help you start selling and making money today. Welcome to the Sales on Demand Show. And here's your host, Adam Schneider.
Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Adam and I am your host and the master of ceremonies for today's special episode. Well, actually it's not special, it's just a normal episode, but it is episode, it's episode 62. Sorry, I just had to check there. So today I'm going to be talking about selling internationally and being an international seller. Okay, so those are two different things. This episode can be broadly applied. Every single person can get something out of this. Even if you are United States based, you still can learn how to sell internationally. Because, believe it or not, the United States is not the only place on earth where people will buy print on demand. I know, it's crazy. I know the U.S. is the center of the universe, kind of like the nucleus of the whole thing right there, and all of the rest of the world orbits around the United States, including Canada, and we just basically, everything that happens in the U.S. matters to us for no reason, no good reason whatsoever. So, hey, that's cool, but there are other people in other countries that will buy your products, and I'm going to tell you how to open up your stores to make that happen and what to do when people buy those products. Then we're going to talk about being a person who is not living in the United States and wants to sell into the United States. What do you need to know and what should you be concerned with? So first off, let me say I continue to see record sales on all platforms, making the first half of this year pretty much Christmas. Well, the second half of the first half of this year, the first half of this year, if that makes any sense to you, like January, February, it was average, maybe a little less than average. You could tell that we were starting to go into a recession and things were kind of looking ugly-ish, but not too bad. It's pretty common for, some years to be worse than others. So still, we were making money and it didn't seem like anything was going to be too crazy. And then the pandemic hit and sales just dropped like a stone, but then they went up again. And the second half of this pandemic thing has been the greatest season that I've ever seen in my entire life. If you're already selling, you probably already know. This is as good as it gets for this time of year. I've never seen it like this. So we still have a full month of really, really hot selling because it is coming up to Father's Day. So don't, shut your computer off and check out, because there is tons of money to be made in Father's Day. Maybe like 75 to 85% of the volume of Mother's Day. Mother's Day is the biggest holiday that isn't Christmas, but Father's Day is not far behind. And I've been selling Father's Day items literally since January. So, yeah. Anyway, today's sponsored message is me. I am sponsoring myself. I am still creating a course, guys. It is coming. It is a lot of work to create the course, but it's going to be very complete. It's going to be a full-on, how to sell print on demand everywhere, doing literally everything that I know. Originally, I was planning to only talk about Amazon FBA because that was what I knew the best and the most. But I've really expanded what I know this year. I now, Etsy, which used to be just an afterthought to me, has now become, a hot platform for me. Not as, obviously, as good as Amazon, but to the point where I know I could expand it if and when I wanted to. I just, I've reached the maximum capacity of my time. So I'm like, okay, I'm good enough here. So that is coming. So keep an eye out for it. It's likely 3 or 4 weeks away, is my guess. I want to make sure it is fully complete. So, for me, this has been a weird and crazy week. A couple of days ago, I started noticing one of my teeth it was starting to ache on me. And I thought, oh, that sucks. I hope that doesn't get worse. Yeah, so it did get worse. And it went from, oh, I better take an Advil so this doesn't hurt for the rest of the day, to the point where I was literally taking every single over-the-counter pain medication that exists, well, which the 3 of them that I know about, which is Tylenol, Advil, and aspirin. I was taking them all at the same time because there was no other way for me to not want to pull my jaw off of my face and cry. Like, it hurts so much. So I went to the emergency room and got some antibiotics, which actually helped quite a bit. It took about a day for them to kick in, but there must have been a heck of an infection because, yeah. So then I went and I found an oral surgeon who happily pulled that sucker right out of my face. It took about 3.5 minutes for him to do that. And I don't know what I was expecting. I've had teeth pulled before, and some of them have taken like an hour and a half, so I was prepared to sit there for a long time. But no, this guy, he just got in there. I think he literally just took a pair of pliers and pulled it out. And like he was like rocking my face back and forth, and I was like, oh god. But then it just came out, so it was fine. No more pain. I just got blood in my mouth every now and then, which sucks. But that's what happens when you have a tooth pulled. So if that's gross, I'm sorry, but it's gross to me too. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of yard work, and spring is so fantastic, but there's so much work to be done on our yard. So I've been in and out, like coming in, doing stuff for the business, going outside, doing some yard work. I'm trying to balance everything out so I'm not spending too much time in front of the computer or neglecting the business by being outside all the time. So now, what is selling? Mother's Day items continue to sell. I mean, I'm still making sales for Mother's Day. People are obviously still shopping for Mom because they forgot or they didn't get a chance to or something. But they are much slower, of course. However, if you have Mother's Day items, don't take them down. You should never take any listings down. There's no reason to take any listings down unless it is very, very, very specifically meant for a holiday. If it says Mother's Day on it, then yeah, sure, you can not. By take it down, I mean don't renew it. On Etsy, items will renew every 4 months and you pay 20 cents for a renewal. So it probably doesn't make sense to renew those items in July. But if it's just an item for mothers, just keep those up. There is no reason to take those down. People will buy those year-round, including at Christmas time and including when Mother's Day is over. Father's Day, as I said, and I've been telling you guys this for like literally months, Father's Day is now in full swing. So get out there and research and launch some stuff. Masks are selling, and Gear Bubble has them, and they sell really well because there are a lot of places, there are states in the United States, not so much in Canada, haven't seen this in Canada, but there are places in the US and probably internationally where people are required to wear face coverings of some kind in order to shop in a store or conduct some kind of business. So it's kind of like vehicle insurance. I mean, people have to have them, they're going to buy them. So if you provide them and they can buy a cool design for their mask, something that really speaks, instead of just this plain blue or whatever thing that everybody's walking around with, it's like this cool looking thing. And Gear Bubble has them. They do take some time to arrive at the customer, so it's not like this instant thing. But, if you manage customer expectations, tell them it's going to take a long time. People will still buy them because they're really cool looking. And the ones from Gear Bubble, they have a little pouch in them for a filter, which is probably only useful if you're like firefighting or something like that, because I don't know, like the effectiveness of these masks is something that I'm not entirely convinced on. Like, maybe it will protect other people, and the filtered ones probably protect other people from you, but I mean, what are the chances that you're an asymptomatic carrier? I mean, if you just stay away from people, it's probably good enough. Anyway, not gonna dive down that rabbit hole, but I could. For making mock-ups for the masks, Gear Bubble has the old style mask, and they are the kind that fold out. They no longer look like that, so don't use the Gear Bubble mock-up. They are working on creating a new launching system, but with all of these things, there is a lot of like buttons to press in the back end, and that is far, far beyond my expertise. So, they're working on it. Anyway, you can actually purchase a mock-up on Etsy, which is Photoshop compatible. So it's a .psd file, and you can use Photoshop, and I think you can use... There's other programs that you can use to edit Photoshop files, and this one, I think these mock-ups they're very simple to use. They're not warping or anything like that. Or you can use a website called placeit.net. I think that's what it is. That costs money. It's like a monthly fee. It's $30 or something a month. So if you want to launch a whole pile of mock-ups or masks, and you want a really nice looking mock-up, Placeit has mock-ups, and they're really easy to use. I've used them before for t-shirts. They have a ton of t-shirts, and not too many coffee mugs, but they do have some. It's just probably easier if you have any experience with using Photoshop files. They're not that hard to use. You literally just, put the picture on the thing, stretch it and put it where it needs to be. So, if you haven't done it, you know what? Now's a good time to learn. If you're not gonna learn new things, you're not gonna be a very successful seller. Anybody who's like, I don't know how to do that, I'm not willing to learn, you're gonna fail at this. I'm telling you right now, you're going to fail at this. But learning new things is not as difficult as people imagine. It is frustrating when you first start, but did you guys know that we have a thing called YouTube? There is literally millions of, well, maybe not millions, but there's hundreds of thousands of tutorials using Photoshop on YouTube. Literally type in what you want to do, and there will be a YouTube video to show you how to do it. So, yeah. Alright, so let's talk about selling internationally. So, this is something that you can apply no matter who you are, no matter where you live. If you live outside of the US, you can still sell internationally on Etsy and on Amazon, except you're more likely to sell internationally on Etsy. It's kind of a weird thing that a lot of Canadians, I get a ton of orders from Canada. I look at my sales, and like every third customer is from Canada. So I know exactly what's happening, and it's annoying to me because I didn't know that this was going to happen when I first opened my Etsy store. So when I opened my Etsy store, I put my location as being Canada. So when people are looking for things to buy, there are some people out there who are like, I'd rather buy from a Canadian. And sometimes they will even like search based on country. I don't know why. And a lot of them think that if a seller is in Canada, that they're going to get that item faster. That's not how it works. And so I get a lot of Canadians ordering from me, thinking that I'm literally making these coffee mugs. Like I'm sitting here with this, the spinning wheel, kind of like in that movie Ghost, and I've got Patrick Swayze behind me. and I'm just like making coffee mugs, and then I'm like hand drawing the design on it. There are some people who do that. If you remember the interview I had with Travis Ross, he actually is doing that. But I am not interested in getting into the coffee mug printing business. That's why I pay other people to do this. No, I'm not getting into that. So it is irritating for me, but I do manage my customers very well. So when I get an order from Canada, what did I do? There's a follow-up email that states, "Thank you for your order. If you live in Canada, your order is being shipped from the United States." So it tells people, hey, yeah, I'm a Canadian, but I'm not sending you your product right away. You know what? It's never been a really big problem. It only gets to be a problem around holidays and people are sort of expecting their item, and the tracking does not work in Canada. So this is a major source of irritation for me, is that people are constantly asking, how can I track this item in Canada? And I have to tell them, you can't. Canada Post is stupid. And if I were to ship my coffee mugs with Canada Post to you, it would probably cost double. The only way that I can offer a competitive price for anything that I sell is to ship it from the United States into Canada. I don't know why Canada Post charges so much money to ship the smallest item. Like literally like an envelope. If you want to ship it and it's not like regular mail, it starts at about $11 to ship something like that. And then for, an item that weighs a pound, it's like $19 to ship. And that's just not feasible. I mean, people are not going to pay that kind of money. Especially, that's just normal, like, slow shipping. Like, it might make it there in a week. So, yeah, it's just... But that makes it easy for me to tell people why I do that. I'm like, hey, listen, Canada Post is really expensive. In order for me to offer a really good deal, good value, I have to ship from the United States. I've never had anybody call me on that. Never. People just accept it. And you know what? There are a lot of Canadians and everybody around the world, we're all used to buying items from the US. Okay? I even shop on Amazon.com. If I can't find an item on Amazon.ca, I will go to Amazon.com and I will buy it from Amazon.com. And it ships over here and it takes extra time. No big deal. Like, it's not free shipping either. I gotta pay extra for that. It's still worth it for me because I can get a lot of stuff that I can't find here. So, Canada is a good place to start. If you want to sell internationally, start with Canada. So, this is what I do. It costs $1 extra to ship to Canada. So, charge more. Okay, don't eat that cost in your prices. A lot of people are, and I used to do this. I used to on Etsy. Oh, I just remembered that I made this huge change and I haven't talked about it yet. So I will talk about that now. So I used to on Etsy offer free shipping. I do not offer free shipping anymore, and I have raised my prices by $1. That is for US sellers, and $2 for Canadian sellers, or for buyers, sorry. So what I did is that I lowered all my prices by $4, and then I added $4.95 shipping. And so that makes the effective price 95 cents more, give or take. No, it's a full dollar more, because I was charging $19.95 with free shipping, and I was giving free shipping to Canadians too. Now I'm eating I'm losing $1 of profit every time I sell to Canadians. So I started thinking to myself, why am I doing this? People will pay the money. So I raised my prices, and I raised it an extra $1 to Canadians, so they pay $5.95 shipping, and then they still pay the regular price. So that extra $1, I'm not losing the $1. Because it is a bit more of a pain to ship to Canada. I've had way more customer service messages from Canadians than I have from anyone else. So, if I'm going to sell to Canada, then I'm charging more. And you should charge more. And we will pay it because we are very apologetic people. And, we don't want to offend anybody. So, go ahead and charge that extra $1 and we'll pay it. Okay, sounds good. All right. Now, GST. If you live in Canada and you have sold $30,000 worth of product total, you must enroll in the GST program and charge and remit GST. Which reminds me, I still owe a bunch of GST, which sucks. All right. So if you don't live in Canada, you don't have to worry about that. You do not need a Canadian tax identification number. You don't need to register for GST as an international seller. You don't even have to worry about it. Just sell to Canadians. Like, literally make sure your items are available in Canada, and when someone buys, you ship the item to them, and then the money goes back and forth. That's it. That's all you have to worry about. There isn't any sort of, report that you need to make to the Canadian government. We're not the United States. We're not going after, everybody for tax money, and we're certainly not California, where they want every single human being that transacts anywhere near or to do with California. They want their sales tax. So, yeah, California sucks. I mean, you got nice weather there, but your government is a giant ball of flaming cow poop. So, yeah, don't worry about GST. If you live in Canada, you can enroll in GST. Once you reach $30,000 total sales, you're supposed to. I don't think... I've never seen anybody going around enforcing it. I mean, they could. If you are selling and making a profit, you're supposed to file taxes, right? And if you're not, don't be stupid. File your taxes, okay? Make sure you get all your deductions, your work at home deductions. You can deduct the cost of your office space. I have a dedicated office, so that all of the cost of running this office is a deductible expense. This podcast is a deductible expense, like everything. It's deductible off of, my sales. So make sure you're filing taxes in whatever state you live in. And then, of course, federally. You don't have to be a business. You don't have to be an LLC. Be a sole proprietor. It's really easy to do. I don't know how you do it in the U.S. It's pretty much the same process. Here in Canada, you can register a sole proprietor business just by telling the government that I am a sole proprietor business. I went online and registered my name because I was running a farm at the time. But, when you file your taxes here in Canada, all you do is put business. There's a section for business stuff. And you list out your sole proprietor income, expenses, and all this stuff. It is complicated. I mean, you can get an accountant or bookkeeper to do it for you if you really want to. I do it myself because I'm cheap and I don't want to pay somebody. I might probably pay somebody this year because I don't want to do it. But, if you're selling to somebody outside of your country, you generally don't have to pay the sales tax for that country, except if you're selling to the United Kingdom. Now, I believe there's a minimum threshold for paying what's called value-added tax. So if you guys live in the UK or in the European Union, which are now two different things, you are going to be paying the largest sales tax that I've ever heard of, 20%, which is insane. How do you guys put up with 20% sales tax? Value-added tax. That is crazy. I mean, okay, the United States started a revolt over a 1% tax on tea. So, I mean, the fact that you guys are now paying 20% of everything that you buy, I don't know if it applies to, like, groceries and stuff. GST doesn't apply to groceries here. Some things are exempt, but 20% is insanely high. That's ridiculously high. So I don't know. You guys need some kind of revolution or something. Non-violent revolution, of course, but, maybe some screaming at your politicians anyway. The United Kingdom and the European Union are pretty strict about value-added tax. So if you are selling a lot into the United Kingdom, or you live in the United Kingdom, you may be liable to charge value-added tax on anything you sell. I don't know how the rules work on that one. Honestly, I know that you guys get screwed over, basically. Like, you really get screwed over. However, don't take my word for it. Talk to an accountant. There's probably a way to, circumvent that if you're, or minimize it. I'm not trying to say that you should break the law, but there's probably legal ways for you to minimize how much you're going to pay that. So, but yeah, it is a pain to be paying value-added tax, which is why I don't sell a lot of products to Great Britain or to anywhere else in the European Union. It's just not something I sell a lot of. I've had a lot of orders in the past. For some reason, they kind of dried up. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that, but once in a while, I'll get something that ships to maybe Australia. I used to get, there was one Christmas that I had just a ton of sales from Australia. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess Australians really like what I'm selling. I hardly have seen one in the last maybe 1.5 years now. So it's just a weird thing. And I think it's because Australia is, charging some kind of customs taxes or something. Again, you guys are getting screwed by your governments. Huge. If you're paying customs and taxes on stuff that comes through the mail. And I know in the United Kingdom, you are paying a ton of customs taxes. However, you can still buy coffee mugs, and you probably will not pay any customs fees because it's $15 or £15 is the limit. Anyway, I don't know. Don't want to speculate about that because I could be wrong. But anyway, look into it. But I can tell you that Canada is probably the best place to start selling internationally. If you're going to sell internationally, but then open up, your sales to everybody else, but make sure you charge extra for shipping. So what I do is I charge like $8 total shipping for anywhere that's not Canada or the US. I think I actually charge $8.95. Even though it doesn't actually cost that much extra to ship, I think it's just an extra $2 to ship internationally. There's always a problem. There's always a risk of an international order getting lost. So I want to charge more in case I have to refund somebody. So there are some countries that you should probably not ship to. Generally, if I got an order from, and I'm sorry, it's not racist to say this, but if I got an order from Nigeria, I'm canceling that order. I'm sorry, but there's a risk of fraud with some of these things. Same with maybe an order from Vietnam. I would be really, really hesitant to ship to Vietnam. I just don't know what shipping is like there. And I don't want to be defrauded, right? If I ship something out and they say, oh, I didn't get it, and then they file a chargeback, well, I'm not going to eat that. So, yeah, I'm not interested in taking a risk just to make an extra couple bucks. So, now I talk about this like it happens all the time. It almost never happens. I've never had an order from Vietnam. But, it could happen, I suppose. And I would probably tilt my head a little bit and just sort of think about it for a bit. And, maybe I'd contact a customer and say, hey, just want to make sure that, you've got a good address and, that this is a legitimate order. I don't know if I'd say that, but, I'm trying to reduce the risk of fraud, so you understand. If someone lives in Vietnam, I'm pretty sure they're just used to that. I hate to say it, but maybe, you know what, maybe this is not a thing with Vietnam, but countries in sort of Southeast, Central Asia, they tend to be heavily populated and services are not quite as reliable. It's just a fact, right? They're getting much better. They're probably going to surpass us, in the next 100 years, and then we'll be the third world country because our dollar will collapse. But for the time being, it is what it is. So, the one thing that you need to do on Etsy is make sure that your listings all state everything ships from the United States. Okay? Because it does. Everything ships from the United States. That's all I'll say about selling internationally. There isn't much else I can say. I only really sell... I get a lot of sales from Canada. Canada is really kind of building. And one of the places that it's building is on Amazon Canada. So yeah, we have Amazon here in Canada, and it's not connected with the United States, except that when you register for an Amazon account and you live in the United States, well, even if you don't, but you want to sell to the United States, you automatically get what's called a North American account. So you pay one fee, and you get to sell Amazon in Canada, the United States, and in Mexico. So the only place I sell besides the United States is Canada. I don't know what it's like to sell into Mexico. It could be alright. I just am not comfortable taking any risks like that. I don't know if the products that I have for sale would actually be something that Mexicans would buy. I know there are lots of middle-class people living in Mexico. It's not like it was 20 years ago. I mean, there's still some pretty rough areas, but I mean, Mexico is a real, maybe first world, getting close to first world country, so that might be something to look into. None of my listings are in Spanish, though. I don't know if that's a big deal. It's not obviously in Canada, because you're not required to have your listing in English and French. English is acceptable. But maybe in Mexico, they would want you to have your listings in Spanish. So that's something to look into. If you live in Mexico, that is definitely something to look into, because you already have access to that platform if you own an Amazon account for the North America. Like, you already have that. So just turn it on and then add a few listings and see how it goes. I mean, you have nothing to lose to do that. It's just not something I'm interested in doing. So let's talk about Amazon Canada. So it's actually fairly easy. Simple, I guess, to enable international listings from inside your Seller Central account. You just need to enable that and enable it for each market that you want to sell into. And now I think you can actually port these items to other marketplaces other than the North American one. I haven't tried that yet, though. That is something to look into, right? So Canada is not a big market. It's maybe like 5% of the United States. But I'm getting sales on Amazon Canada like every second day or so. It's just free money, basically. So, a lot of the items that I sell are actually specifically Canadian-themed items, and I'm not going to say exactly what the design that I made, but it had something to do with the current Prime Minister and something that he said a little while ago that was kind of humorous, so I made a design based on that, and it's been selling to Canadians on Amazon Canada. And every time I add a listing to my Amazon account, it automatically goes to both the United States and to Canada. I don't have to actually manually do that, which is nice because I have a lot of listings, and that would be very time consuming. And once in a while, I just get a sale from Canada that just pops up there. And it's like, oh, great, hey, I'll take it. It's free money. It's not like a huge flood of orders, but it is building up, and that's good to see. So it's worth enabling that if you have an Amazon account, and it doesn't cost any extra. There's no cost to it, and once you've enabled that, it should port all of your listings to Canada. I had it was a little bit finicky for me, but that was 2 years ago, so they might have improved the process now. It seems to be automatic. The only thing that it doesn't do, it doesn't automatically integrate any orders. So you have to manually fulfill Canadian orders, which, if you're trying to make this completely automatic, that is a bit of a consideration. So the last thing, let's talk about being an international seller. This will be a bit of a quicker segment here. I'm already at 34 minutes. I don't want to spend too much of your time. But you can sell on both Etsy and Amazon pretty much no matter where you live. You can, especially as a Canadian, it's pretty easy to open an Etsy account. Consider opening, listen to what I'm about to tell you and take heart. If you haven't already opened up an Etsy account, consider opening your Etsy account to be in the United States. You can do that apparently, and I did not know this, and it's a little bit too late for me to change this because I would have to close my store and reopen it. Once you open your store, whatever location you choose, so if you choose your home location, Etsy will send you your money in your local currency, and they're never going to change that. So I opened up a Payoneer account. I use US dollars for that account, and what I was hoping to do was get everything sent to me in US dollars, and then I turn around and I spend those US dollars on new product, and it all just sits there in the US dollar account. And, maybe once in a while I'll send myself some money if I need to do that, but then I don't have to constantly be exchanging back and forth. And I've talked about why I'm losing 8% every time I do this. Now Etsy, because I opened my store in Canada, that's done. They won't let me change it. So whatever. I'm not doing like millions of dollars on Etsy. I'm doing, probably this year I'll hit $20,000 in sales. So that's a decent amount of money, but out of the total sales volume that I expect to do, it's not a huge percentage. So I'll lose a little bit on Etsy, so I'll charge more. Etsy customers will pay more. So that's kind of my solution. I'm just going to charge more on Etsy because I don't want to make less money and do more work. But yeah, if you haven't already opened your Etsy account, or if you've just opened it, close it down, open it up to be in the US. I don't know exactly how to do that. I know you can do it. So no matter what you do, though, even if you already got your Etsy store open, if you've got a bunch of listings and you're making sales, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just to save yourself a couple percentage points of profit. But price everything in US dollars, no matter where you are selling. People ask this all the time. They're like, why would I price things in US dollars? I'm not in the US. And I'm like, okay, listen, you may not be in the US, but everybody who's buying things online today, everybody expects to pay in US dollars. You do not want your item to come up and be priced in whatever currency they have in Indonesia, if you're in Indonesia. You want everything to be priced in US dollars, because customers will compare prices, just even if they're not really, price isn't a huge factor, but they're sort of mentally looking at it. And if they see something that doesn't look right, they're not going to buy your product, right? So price it in US dollars, and that's easy to do. Especially on Etsy, you can price everything in US dollars, and you should, right? And then you're going to get paid in your local currency, whatever that is. So for me, Etsy converts it to Canadian dollars and sends it to me. I'm sure they keep some money, whatever. I'm not going to cry about it. I wish everything was going to the same account, but it's not. So, yeah. So if you're a Canadian, make sure you're looking at getting a US dollar bank account so you can use something called Payoneer. I just opened up my Payoneer account and I got a prepaid MasterCard. It actually works really well. I just used it to buy a bunch of credits to send out orders for customers. It saves a ton on the exchange rate, so I'm not paying any exchange rate, especially on Amazon, where that is a big deal. So, like I said, if you have a US Etsy account, you can use Payoneer. If not, then you can't. So, yeah. So, if you're international and not Canadian, and you haven't opened up any accounts yet, if you're opening up an Etsy account, you want to open up an Amazon account, it's going to take longer for you, and it's going to be more fiddly. Amazon and Etsy have a very, well, especially Amazon, They have a very, very rigorous vetting process for new sellers, especially Amazon, because obviously there are a ton of scammers out there who are trying to take advantage of, if they can open up a seller account, they can basically scam people and then get away with it. So both Etsy and Amazon require documents, and sometimes Etsy will allow you to open an account, and then as soon as you make a sale, they'll shut you down, which is really not cool. But listen, if that happens, don't give up. Just communicate with Etsy and Amazon to fix any issues. Send them whatever documents they want. If they say, "Oh yeah, no, we don't accept those documents," find a way around it. All right, keep communicating with them, and you can get your account either reinstated or opened in the first place. Whatever you do, though, do not send fake documents, or don't send someone else's documents. Don't try and circumvent the system by cheating or sending someone else's documents unless you're using that person in your business. If you're like, "Oh, my dad lives in Canada, my dad will open the account," that's fine. Your dad can open up his own seller account and then add you as somebody on there. That's the best way to do it. But don't send someone else's documents who doesn't know about it, because Amazon, they're not stupid. They deal with this and they'll just shut you down, and you'll never be able to get an account again. So that's not good. You don't want that. So don't try and bluff your way past, because it won't work. It's just not going to work. Amazon's got one of the best vetting process. Well, yeah, they're pretty good, is what I'm saying. They're maybe not the best, but they're pretty good. They'll find you. They use IP tracking and all this kind of stuff to figure out where you're actually selling from. So that is really all I have to say about if you're selling internationally. Obviously, if you are not living in the United States, you do not need to worry about paying U.S. taxes, okay, which is great. I don't worry about sales tax at all, except for Canadian sellers, or buyers, I should say. If I sell to a Canadian, then I have to charge GST and then send the GST to Mr. Trudeau, who then cashes it and goes on another vacation. However, California and a whole bunch of other states, they are now forcing Amazon to collect and remit taxes so that we don't have to do it. Okay, which is great. I'm all in for that. I don't make enough sales on any other state to file any returns, so I'm not even worrying about that. If you live in a state that requires you to pay or charge sales tax, then register for sales tax. Figure it out. Go look online. There's so much information online. It's too much for me to obviously research every single state. There are apparently at least 50 of those states. That's just a lot. So I'm not going to be doing that, but I'm sure that if you're, reasonably intelligent, you can use a mouse and a keyboard. You can probably find google.com and do some research. Now, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave it, on the Facebook page. That's where I usually am. You can also leave the comment on the actual website, salesondemandshow.com. Those ones I don't see right away. I only see them when I log in. So if you want an instant reply, that's not the best way to do it. But if you send a message through the Facebook message system, or you find me, send me a message. I basically live on Facebook, so that's pretty fast. In any case, we'll talk to you next week, and cheers.